I have no craving for it. But I can't stand the smell of smoke anymore.
Everyone thought George Jones had it all: fame, money, and a voice that captivated America. But behind the glamour, the man known as the Possum carried a lingering regret that he never revealed. In the final months of his life, at the age of 82, George suddenly made a confession that left millions of fans speechless. He didn't talk about music, didn't talk about prestigious trophies, but talked about something he had lost, something that neither money nor fame could bring back. His voice trembled, his eyes looked far away, as if he were talking to his own soul. "I wish I could take it back." Those words spread throughout America, not just as a confession, but as a sigh of an entire generation of artists who had dedicated their lives to art, then were lonely in their own glory. But the truth behind that confession is much darker. George Jones was born in 1931 in Saratoga, Texas, to a poor family in the midst of the Great Depression. His father was a carpenter, his mother a gentle housewife, but life was never easy. George's childhood was a series of days witnessing alcohol, violence, and poverty. His drunken father often beat him, and young George, to escape reality, turned to music. At the age of 9, he learned to play guitar, busking on the dusty streets of Texas to earn a few pennies to help his mother. Music became his only escape, not to become famous, but to survive. The boy's deep singing touched the hearts of the people of the southern countryside, who were living with the same sadness and loss as he. But it was poverty and that dark childhood that left George with a deep wound: the fear of abandonment, the fear of losing love. A seemingly small wound, but it would later become a fire that destroyed his life, both emotionally and in the music he loved most. In the 1950s, when country music was just beginning to rise, George Jones appeared like a strange wind. With his husky, emotional voice and his painful singing style, he quickly attracted the attention of local radio stations. The hit "Why Baby Why," released in 1955, put George on the American music map. Then came a series of songs that made listeners choke up, like "She Thinks I Still Care" and "He Stopped Loving Her Today," the song considered the national anthem of broken hearts. George Jones became a living legend, honored as the voice of country. But that bright light came with a price. Glory brought pressure, money, and lonely nights. George began to turn to alcohol and drugs to forget the emptiness in his soul, something that fame could not fill. The more famous he became, the deeper he sank into darkness. Canceled shows due to drunkenness, violent scandals, and broken marriages made George Jones a symbol of greatness and devastation all at once. And at the height of his career, he met Tammy Wynette, a woman who made the world think he had finally found peace. But in fact, that was only the beginning of his greatest tragedy.
The marriage between George Jones and Tammy Wynette is considered one of the most beautiful but painful love stories in country music history. Two stars, two lonely souls, found each other amidst unhealed wounds. They sang about love, about pain, and that made audiences believe they were meant to belong to each other. But behind the emotional duets, like Golden Ring and We're Gonna Hold On, were nights filled with tears and violence. George, drowning in alcohol, became out of control. Tammy, although loving him, could no longer bear the anger and self-destruction of the man she once worshipped. The beautiful love story, like a movie soundtrack, turned into a real tragedy. After the divorce, George fell into a spiral of despair, debt, addiction. He was arrested by the police, slept in his car, and was banned from performing because he was too drunk. The media at that time called him No-Show Jones, the man who lost himself at the peak of fame. But deep in that self-destruction, George still held one thing: regret. He said in a rare interview, "I hurt the only woman who ever truly loved me. I hurt the only woman who truly loved me." Those words left the audience speechless, because everyone understood those words were not just spoken to Tammy, but also to the part of himself that he had lost in the darkness.
In his later years, George Jones lived a quieter life. He quit drinking, regained his health, and returned to the stage on small tours. No more glitz, no more bright lights. Just him, his guitar, and a voice that had trembled with time. In a 2012 interview, when asked if he had any regrets, George paused for a few seconds. Then he said, "I wish I could take it all back. The pain, the mistakes, the way I hurt the people I loved. I wish I could take it all back. The mistakes, the pain, and the way I hurt the people I loved." That was George Jones's final confession. An apology that required no forgiveness, just to free himself. When he sang "He Stopped Loving Her Today" for the last time on stage, the audience realized something special. For years, they thought he was singing the song about another man. But in fact, he was singing it about himself. On April 26, 2013, George Jones died at the age of 81. Thousands of fans flocked to Nashville, standing silently before his casket. At the funeral, they played the song again. He stopped loving her today. And this time, it really stopped.
George Jones is gone, but his music lives on, not just in his old records, but in the hearts of millions of country lovers around the world. He is remembered not just as the possum, but as a man who sang with his truest pain. Younger artists like Alan Jackson, Garth Brooks, and George Strait all called him the soul of country music. No one can replicate George's voice because he sang not just with technique, but with raw wounds. And though his life was filled with mistakes, alcohol, and irrevocable mistakes, that's what made him so relatable to his audience. They didn't just listen to George Jones' music, they saw themselves in it. The regrets, the losses, the words left unsaid. He was country music, not just its sound, but its soul. Today, whenever George Jones's voice rings out somewhere in a small bar or on a radio in the South of America, people still fall silent for a few seconds because they know
behind that voice is a person who has loved, made mistakes, and lived more truly than anyone else.